I may need to pop out because I have somebody coming into the studio. Okay.
All right, so it looks like we are live on YouTube. So first off, hello everyone. Thank you, Christopher, Jonathan, and Chris Alvarez for being here. My name is Tony Salazar. I am the president of the Radio Television Digital News Association here at Fresno State. My major is broadcast journalism. I am finishing up my third year and will be into my senior year. And so we'll go ahead and go around the table and introduce our officers. So first off, we'll start off with Mark Lopez.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark Anthony Lopez. I am the multimedia chair of Fresno State's RTDNA. I am a broadcast journalism major as well, with hopes of going into sports broadcasting, and currently in my senior year, and I'm pretty excited to learn from you guys.
And then I'd also like to introduce some of our other RTDNA officers. So we'll go ahead and start with Anna. Hi, Anna. It looks like you're unmuted. There you go.
Sorry. So my name is Anna. I am also a broadcast journalism student. I'll be graduating in the fall of 2021, and I am the outreach chair for RTDNA. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you, Anna. And then next up we have Karina. Hi, Karina.
Hi, my name is Karina. I am a senior currently, also majoring in broadcast and journalism, and it's my senior year, and very excited to have you all here. And I'm the secretary of RTDNA.
Thank you. And then next up we have Clarissa, the vice president. Hi, Clarissa. Alrighty, so we're gonna move on. And then Jocelyn. Hi, Jocelyn, how are you?
Sorry. Hi, you guys. My name is Jocelyn. My major is mass communications and journalism and broadcast. This is my last semester, and I am the treasurer of RTDNA. And I'm super excited to hear everything you guys have to tell us. I'm super excited.
Thank you. And then, of course, our club advisor, Faith Sidlow. Hi, Faith.
Hi, Tony. Hi, everyone. Thank you to our panelists for being here. It's great seeing all of you. And just quickly, I'm the faculty advisor for RTDNA, associate professor of broadcast journalism at Fresno State, and worked in the news industry, KC24, for 28 years. And I'm just thrilled to have the knowledge from all of you being imparted to these students because they're really excited about sports journalism.
Thank you, Faith. And so now we will introduce some of our panelists today. So Julia Lopez, she is a proud graduate from Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, where she majored in communication studies with a minor in ethnic studies. She has worked in many markets, including Phoenix, Reno, Denver, Greenville, South Carolina, and she is currently a sports anchor and a reporter for the CBS and NBC affiliate here in Fresno, where she covers the amazing Central Valley athletes and teams around the area. Julia, thank you so much for being here today.
How did you get all that information? That was really good, Tony.
Thank you. Just did some research and
Thank you so much, guys, for having me. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Big resume right there, but have lived pretty much everywhere in the US, which is really cool. We can talk about more of that later, but I'm really excited to join all of you guys here today. So thanks for the intro.
And I'll go ahead and introduce our next panelist. He is an award-nominated host of the Christopher Gabriel program, or better known as the CGP, on 940 ESPN Fresno, covering local and national sports. Every once in a while, he discusses movies, music, pop culture, food, you name it. Christopher attended the University of Southern California, has been awarded numerous awards, including the High Plains Reader's Best Bets in 2013. Christopher, thank you so much for your time today. I believe you're muted.
Yeah, I hit the thing 3 times, and apparently I was hitting it in the wrong spot. No, it's great to be here. Thanks a bunch. I know I'm like, where did you get that information? But like Julia, I have lived all over the country, but it was for what I did before I was a broadcaster. I've been in radio 16 years, but I was a classically trained actor, so I worked all over the U.S. and all over Great Britain. So that kind of allowed me to see the world, and then it was time to settle down in Fresno. But it's great to be here, and I'm delighted to share the dais with Julia, Chris, and Jonathan.
Thank you. And then next up we have Jonathan Singh. Jonathan is a sports anchor and reporter for Eyewitness News in Bakersfield. He attended Dowling College in Oakdale, New York for his bachelor's degree. And Jonathan says his sports has always been a part of who he is. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Hey, everybody. Well, Tony, thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. Super kind of you. I also studied at Syracuse University after my undergraduate time at Dowling College, the weekend sports anchor at the CBS and Fox affiliate in Bakersfield, California. I'm initially from the East Coast, born and raised in New York. So I've been out in California now for the past 3 years, and I'm having a super great time.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Chris Alvarez. As a Fresno native, he played basketball and baseball at Clovis West High School and college baseball at Fresno Pacific University. Chris began his TV career in Fresno at KBAK TV and also as ABC 30. He graduated from Fresno State with a bachelor's degree in mass communication and journalism with a broadcast emphasis. Chris currently works at ABC 7 in San Francisco as a sports reporter and anchor. So Chris, thank you for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thank you for the introduction. And it looks like you got a Orange Friday Giants jersey on too.
It's Orange Friday, baby.
We're good. Yeah, I got
wrap.
my Go Dogs, and it's good to see all those familiar faces. And happy to be here. And hopefully we answer some of the questions you guys have.
Sounds great. So once again, welcome everybody, and thank you very much to our panelists for being here, and as well as to our RTDNA officers and our viewers on YouTube. We see you. Thank you. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So how this is going to work, we'll start by asking all of the panelists the first few questions that we have, and then we will open it up to the questions that some of our members have submitted via our YouTube live stream. We'll start by asking each panelist to answer question 1 first, go around the room, then question 2, and so forth. So Mark, go ahead and take it away.
Sweet. So I'm gonna throw a softball question, and I'm just curious to hear you guys' beginnings. Where did you guys find your passion in sports and in media? We'll start with Christopher first.
Well, I grew up on the north side of Chicago. I was born a mile from Wrigley Field. I grew up a mile and a half from Wrigley Field. I'm a lifelong White Sox fan. So I grew up taking the L train, the bus, you name it, to Chicago's old Chicago Stadium, Comiskey Park, taking the bus with my family to Wrigley. I mean, sports was a part of my life pretty much from 4 or 5 years old on. As far as media goes, I'll spare you the long story, but I was in theater for a long time, and I was doing a Mitch Albom play. And of course, we all know who Mitch Albom is, and his longtime career at the Detroit Free Press and with ESPN. And I was in Detroit doing a play, and I was sitting at his office, and I said, I really need a new creative outlet. He pushed me, kind of really nudged me aggressively into talk radio. And that's where it all started. I was my minor in college was broadcast journalism. I was always in radio at USC. And I started literally as a call screener and worked my way up. And I'm glad it's a career that I have found fulfilling. It's been fun being a part of Fresno State, being a part of North Dakota State and Minnesota Gophers, University of North Dakota in previous years. I wouldn't do anything else but be in the media.
Good to hear. Jonathan?
Hey, everybody. So I started, this goes back a long time ago. I grew up playing so many sports, and over time, I knew that I would never be a professional athlete, like ever, not even close. And so I was brainstorming other ways to stay involved in sports for pretty much a career. So I remember I was a sophomore during my undergraduate studies, and I was introduced to this communications course that I enrolled myself in. And right then and there, I'm like, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to express what I really love, which is sports. So that small communications course kind of boosted me forward. I was a late bloomer. That's what I like to consider myself. I didn't really start any on-camera work until about the age of 21. After my undergraduate degree, I was looking for different ways to learn more after college. And that's when I enrolled myself at Syracuse University for their master's program. So I really didn't start to the age of 22. So once again, a late bloomer path on to how I got here.
You know, that's funny you bring that up. I'm sure we'll get to this with Chris too. I've kind of noticed that a lot of people who want to go into sports broadcasting kind of get that they have the background of the sports they go into. So, you know, for me, in my case, I was a former baseball player growing up, and it's kind of been that thing, like you said, Jonathan, where you want to stay in that realm because you have the love for the sports and all that. So, Chris, can you echo that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same as Jonathan. I mean, I grew up playing sports from like a little age, but for some reason, if you ask anybody who knows me and watched me grow up, I was always into like the broadcast early too. I would do like play-by-play with my brothers, and it looked weird back in the day, but now it all makes sense. So I always kind of like caught attention and watched the games and was really into the broadcasters and what was going on, and like would watch Sports Center on repeat every day. And my dad or mom said something like, why you keep watching the same show over and over? Because back in the day, it used to just repeat. And I said, you might learn something new. And so I've just always loved it. And the same thing with Jonathan, like at one point you learn you're not going to make it pro. It's really difficult to do. So to be at the games and cover the games and just be around sports, it's like the best thing. It's something I'm super passionate about. And I got an internship at the Fox in Fresno there. And that was kind of my opening in. And once that happened, it kind of, allowed me to take off and kind of work hard and get to where I am today.
Julia,
Can I follow up with that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just regarding the internship, as he said. So my senior year during my undergraduate studies, I got an internship at News 12 Long Island. News 12 is it's a news station on Long Island, New York. And that was my first time ever in a newsroom. I was 22 years old, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is so cool. Like everything behind the scenes that nobody sees, sitting on the couch watching the news. So for me to have that opportunity at News 12 to be in the newsroom, intern in the sports department, go cover a Yankees and a Mets game, that was really eye-opening to me. And without that internship, I don't think I would have took many steps forward to, eventually pursue a master's degree. Because as an intern, I said to myself, I was so honest. I was like, hey, these guys are really good. Like, I need to learn more quickly so that I can try to do what they're doing.
That's great to hear. Julia?
So I've played sports my entire life as well, soccer, softball, growing up with an older brother, like you're just, around football games, baseball games, all that stuff. And then I was lucky enough to actually grow up with my dad being on TV. He was a sports broadcaster for so many years, and I was able to watch him every night. And I got the bug. I got the TV bug when I watched him, and I knew that's what I wanted to get into. And in high school, I actually interned for a TV station, not his old TV station, because I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't tell them who my dad was. I just decided, hey, I want to see if I am good enough to do this on my own. I don't want my dad's help. And I actually interned for the competitor, and I learned a lot of good stuff. And and then in college, I got a couple internships through there. I was at Comcast Sportsnet in San Francisco. I interned at ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. So just getting those internships are just huge. And it really opens your eyes to so many different things and what you want to get into. So I highly, highly, highly recommend internships if you can, no matter where they are, what they are, you're going to learn so much. So that's my little background there.
So I'm a little curious. Where was your father stationed at?
Oh, so I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the big team over there was the Albuquerque Dukes, which was back then the Dodgers affiliate. So I was able to go to games with him and stuff and see his live shots and anchor. And I just got the bug just watching him every day. So
that's great to hear. So you guys are kind of also brought up a little bit into my next question. And it's essentially just, how did you guys get your first big break into the sports industry? We can start with Julia because she touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, so when I was at Colorado State, I majored in communications, not journalism, just because there were a couple more math classes that I did not want to take. I am not a math person at all, so I just decided to go into communications instead. And I did CTV, which is kind of like Focus over there at Fresno State. So I was able to get some anchoring and some reporting in college, and then after college, I sent out my demo reel to everybody. Like literally, there was probably 100 demo reels that I sent out, and I didn't get anything back until I saw an opening in Phoenix, actually, at KPNX, and it was just 1 day a week, Friday Night Football, online. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. You're getting paid $10 an hour 1 day a week, and then I had to waitress on the side just to make means over there. And yeah, that was my big break, just taking a huge leap of faith, not knowing anybody in that market, not knowing if I was going to get a job on the side anyways, but I decided to just go for it. And then went to Greenville, South Carolina after that, and then Reno, and then Denver, and then here.
Christopher, you mentioned earlier that you did start off in acting. Would you consider that your big break, or was the radio stuff?
Well, listen, how much time have you got? I was an actor, and my first big break was doing an off-Broadway play, and I was in the same theater complex as Susan Sarandon was when she was doing a play next door, and she led to all of us. We were doing a play called the Commercial Olympics. The six of us wrote a play about commercials, and we put it in Olympic competition format, and it was Susan Sarandon's help that got us all agents. And so that's where that started out. But with radio, it's a little different. All of you talking about internships, the joke in Minneapolis was I was the oldest intern in the history of radio. I mean, I was in my early 40s when I got rolling, but my first job is probably different from my first break because I talked myself into an internship at KFAN in the Twin Cities. And they started a sister station, a talk station, and that was 4 days. It was like January 6th in 2006, 5, I can't remember. But I was a call screener for a show. Like Julia said, I started hosting on weekends and what have you. I sent my CD, that's how long ago it was. I sent my CD out to 160 stations. Station number 161 was 970 WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota. I was 240 miles from Fargo. I didn't know where the hell it was. So I ended up finding out where it was. 3 months later, after the process started, they brought me up to audition. And my 1 day audition extended to 5 days. And on the 5th day was my birthday. They offered me a contract. And suddenly I'm doing a 3-hour show. And I'd never done a 3-hour show before. And I felt like Albert Brooks in broadcast news, like breaking a sweat, like a wet egg noodle. I didn't know what I was doing. But it was great starting out in Market 200 because I had to do everything. And I know everybody, I know Chris and Jonathan and Julia, they totally get having to do every last thing at their stand-ups and their remotes and stuff. And that's what we did. And it was the best place I could ever have started my daily show, was somewhere to learn every single thing.
That's a wild ride. Chris, you mentioned a little bit about KMPH. Was that your big break?
Yeah, so when I got my internship, I was actually at Fresno Pacific playing baseball, and part of the graduation requirements at the time were to get an internship at some point. I got an internship that summer of like my sophomore year. It was middle of college, and baseball wasn't going where I wanted to. And I tried this internship out. I'm like, well, this is something I think I want to do, but I'm not really sure. You never know if it's going to be panned out what it's supposed to be. And so I had an internship for three months. And then like a couple weeks in, I'm like, I'm done with baseball. Let's get into this now. I was 21, transferred to Fresno State because they actually had a better broadcast program at FPU. Nothing against theirs, but it didn't have like TV studio, all the things that I wanted. So made the decision to transfer and had an internship for, I think it was a 3-month deal. And I just kind of worked my butt off and stayed late and made friends with everybody and made my connections and got into a PA role, which I was, running cameras in the studio and editing, and like not always doing sports, but I helped a lot on Friday Night Football and some of the stuff on the weekends. And that was probably my big break. And I worked throughout college. When I was at Fresno State, I was at KMPH interning for 2 years. So I was really busy. I had a job. Like I learned how to nap in college for sure. But that was kind of the thing. Like I learned through college, I felt like I was a little bit ahead because I was learning all the real world things I needed to learn. so that was my big break. And then I kind of reached out. I befriended one of the local anchors there, Heidi Watney, who's actually MLB Network. She's one of my really good friends now. And she had tried to get a job at Comcast Sportsnet, which is now NBC Sports in San Francisco. And she had applied there, but she ended up in Boston. And I just asked her for some contacts at Comcast. And it ended up, I just kept bugging them, emailing. And finally it went through. And long story short, I got a production assistant job, moved up there right after college, worked my way in the behind the scenes ranks. I got there when I was like 23. I was not even thought, okay, by 25, I'll be on air because I worked really hard. Maybe I'll catch a break. It turned out that I needed to, I learned a lot and got my first job in Palm Springs. But one thing I always tell everybody is there's this website called tvjobs.com. I think it's about $40 a year. It might be a little more now, but it's a great database of like finding, and this is especially for TV, but finding all kinds of jobs. And once I really made the commitment to going on air and knowing I needed to go to a small market, I finally got that job in Palm Springs. And you kind of just, work your time there. And then Fresno came up. And so it's about opportunities and networking. But definitely, I think the biggest thing is getting your foot in the door. And once you do, networking with a lot of people, because literally you're like one call away from someone that you might want to know or someone that's hiring. It's such a small business. And you got 3 of us here. I mean, the network probably goes all across the country, whether it's through school or friends or a person that knows a person. So it's always about, asking questions, opening your mouth and finding out who may know someone, because I almost got a job in Reno. And because I didn't say something or ask a question, like it turned out that one of the people I worked with in San Francisco knew the sports director who actually made the hire. And so I learned from that experience and said, hey, I might as well just ask around, because literally I don't know if it would have gotten me the job, but it probably would have helped. So I think networking is one of the huge things once you get in, if you can get your foot in the door.
Can I add one thing to what Chris just said?
Go ahead.
One of the things, it's right along the lines of what he said. One of the things that I've always told young broadcasters and broadcast students is never say no. Never say yes to everything. Every time you are asked to do any job in your TV station or your radio station, say yes. Because I can tell you in radio now, I can't speak for TV, but in radio, because of the way the business has evolved and because of COVID, now stations are far more prone to hire the person, male or female, who can do more jobs, because everybody's looking to cut costs. If you can do production, imaging, hosting, producing, you're going to have a leg up on somebody who maybe has more experience in a larger market, especially if you're in town.
That's great. I've kind of heard that echo from, some certain other places. But there's one thing I am a little curious about, and this is now going towards Jonathan. You mentioned earlier that you're kind of a late bloomer to the game. I relate to that a lot. I'm about to be 23 in August, and I still don't have as much experience. And for you, what was that like, just trying to get your foot in the door and lead you to your big break?
It was tough and it was scary. When I enrolled at Syracuse University, I'm a master's student surrounded by thousands of undergrads, and the seniors have been there for 4 years, and I'm this new guy who's been there for a month. And so it was a bit intimidating, but I've always had the mindset knowing that, I'm not going to be the best right away or even ever. But if I just put my foot forward, mind my business personally, and do the best that I could do, I can slowly but surely try to catch up to these other students. And that's kind of what I did. As far as my big break, that came towards graduation when I was at Syracuse. We had to apply, or we had to get an internship to graduate. It was part of the curriculum. And I'm on Indeed. I'm clicking away. I'm a desperate college student looking for a job. And I said to myself, you know what? Like, forget the internship. Let's try to find a job. And then we can figure out the internship situation later. Because the whole goal of graduate school or any college is to get a job when, before you graduate or after you graduate. And I remember I was clicking away at Indeed like any job, middle of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee. And I knew I was going to relocate somewhere to a smaller market. I was just being very real with myself. I'm not going to start in a big time city. And I got a phone call from the NFL Network. It was an awful phone call. It did not go my way. So I did what any other college student would do. You just lay down and take a nap. I'm napping and I wake up to my phone ringing from a 661 area code, which is Bakersfield, California. And I picked up the phone and they're like, "Hey, Jonathan, we saw you applied." And I'm like, "I did? I was applying to everything, And so I got kind of lucky because the sports anchor here before me, John Doss, said he was going to re-sign, but my station never got him the contract. And Cleveland came calling. So Cleveland scooped up John Doss, who's now in Cleveland, and they needed a sports reporter ASAP because high school football in the Valley, as all you guys know, is absolutely insane. So they needed another person in the department, and they're like, "Hey, when can you start?" And I said, "I'll be out there in 3 weeks." Yeah, long story short, I don't want to say I left school early, but I kind of skipped the internship part and I came right to Bakersfield. The sad part about it was that when I got off the phone, I didn't even know where Bakersfield was. I'm born and raised in the heart of New York. Bakersfield's it's a small city. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And I remember asking my roommate, I'm like, "Hey, you know where Bakersfield is?" And he goes, "No." So we went on Google, we looked it up, and a month later I moved out.
That's I can see that it happens because I growing up in the Bay Area, we've had those discussions like, "Wait, where is this city?" So that's pretty funny. But that kind of leads me to what Christopher said, and what you kind of touched upon, and it's essentially graduation, students who are trying to get their foot in the door. What are some things you guys have seen and could recommend to students to kind of stand out for themselves when applying to, like, say, jobs and stuff like that?
I've actually got one. I don't mean to cut everybody off, but this Adrian Lewevano, who's a Fresno State graduate, and I think everyone here knows Adrian. I met Adrian when he was in high school, and he had emailed Tommy Tran, who was before me, and then I got to know him. But he just reached out when he was young. He knew what he wanted to do, and he's now in Idaho and he's doing well. But he reached out in high school to the sports anchors in the market and just tried to get on and shadow. And so he would drive his own car, and he would just meet us up, and he was on it from the beginning. He got an internship at our station and moved on to his first job. But I think wherever you are, everyone's literally a click away, whether it's message them on LinkedIn, Twitter, email, Facebook. You can find people everywhere. And the other thing that's new too now is that everyone kind of can have their own platform, right? Like when I was in college and high school, DVD, the technology was so different. You have a nice mic headset, you can have your own show if you want, and just there's no used to, when you make a tape, you think you have to get in the studio in time, but everyone now can get on YouTube, get on a Zoom, record themselves, practice, do stuff with their friends, and start have a pot, whatever it is, you guys can have it. So you start building your reps up that way, and then kind of connecting with whoever answers, and then kind of going that way. But I would suggest, if you're having trouble, especially in the beginning, just everyone has an outlet now with technology. It's pretty easy to get on and do certain things. Get to work that way if you can't get the reps right away. And kind of, you got to make your own path. It's a little bit about being aggressive and persistent. You're going to get denied a lot, as we've all heard. I sent my stuff out. I didn't get on air until I was 27. Jonathan's talking about being a late bloomer as well. It took me a while, and there was a point where I didn't think it was ever going to happen. But if you really want something, you're persistent, jobs open up. And even if you think that people have a job where they are, you never know who might leave in a second. Like Jonathan mentioned, his co-anchor, who actually I know, everyone kind of knows everybody, left in a heartbeat. The reason I'm in Fresno is because I was persistent. All of a sudden, a guy bounced 3 weeks before high school football, and the timing worked out. So even if he looks like there's a full sports department, whatever it is, go for it and still ask questions and email the sports director, whoever it is. And also, the other quick thing is, a lot of you want to be in sports, but a lot of you, especially when you first start, you have to be the weather person 2 days a week, or the news person. I had to be the news guy in Palm Springs, and I was not great at it, and it took some practice, but I took a job 3 days a week, news, 2 to sports, just to get in my foot in the door. It's really hard to, especially early on, get a full-time sports job. Sometimes you can in small markets, but it's difficult. So be willing to take that chance, and you're only going to get better. So it never hurts to know, like Christopher said, it never hurts to know everything.
Hey, do you guys mind if I just piggyback off that real quick? So a few things is just to piggyback off that also. Well, my first thought was I have students reach out to me and they're always concerned about their tape and their reel. Either that they don't have one or the quality of their tape is not the way they would like it. And one thing I tell students is that we have these beautiful iPhones that you can shoot a stand-up on. You don't need a fancy camera with a fancy light and a fancy microphone. You can buy an external microphone and you can shoot a stand-up off your phone. And over time, not every stand-up is going to be perfect, but over time, you're going to produce 2 minutes of quality content that you can send out. And when I first started, I was scared because I'm looking on YouTube of all these reels and I'm like, oh my God, these people are so far ahead of me. But at the same time now, with the way technology is, I mean, even if you're not using the stand-up on YouTube, you can shoot a stand-up and you can play it back and you can kind of just critique yourself and take notes on how to be better. And just to piggyback off another thought that I wrote down here, the more you do, the more valuable you are. I came in as just the weekend sports anchor and the weekday sports reporter, but the pandemic hit and that shut everything down. So I had to move also to the news department because that was the bread and the butter of what was going on last year. And even right now, I'm still doing news reporting on top of my sports reporting and sports anchoring. So the days of just doing one thing are over. The more you can do, especially if you're trying to get your foot in the door, the better off you're going to be. That's just my opinion. That's what I've seen. My reel is both sports and news. I have it mixed just because the news directors that I've been speaking to, they want to see somebody who can kind of do it all.
Yeah, can I jump in here? So first of all, let's just stop with the late bloomer stuff. Okay, I'm old enough to be everybody's father in here. So I bloomed like late, and I died, and I bloomed again. So all of this stuff, I'm a late bloomer at 23. I'm like, you know what I was doing at 23? I was drinking out of a beer on Manhattan Beach. But that is, Chris and Jonathan have said so many things and Julia just that are right on the mark. My first job was in News Talk. My first gig that I did was reporting on the death of Kirby Puckett. They didn't have anybody at KFAN or the News Talk station, which I was at. And News Talk was my entree in. And they sent me to go do a live report over at the Metrodome. I'd never done anything like that. But that's kind of what threw me into the mix in terms of learning how to do that. But everybody here is saying so much that is, I think, just invaluable. And the thing about radio, and I'm the one radio guy here, is that when you're trying to get somebody's attention, that I think was Mark's question, trying to get somebody's attention, what I would send out after I got my first job is I would send an air check out, but I put together a 61-second, it was like a little mini film that was a little piece of video teases, a little piece of me in studio, a little piece of bringing my theater background into play, just to show them that we are now multimedia in radio. We have to be hitting people on air, online, on demand, on Twitter, on Instagram. And I wanted them to be cognizant of the fact that that maybe I was probably an older candidate to their station, but I was very much in touch with all the various platforms, and it never failed to be a conversation starter. So I think, again, just like I said earlier, don't ever say no. Don't think that if you think that there's an old rule of thumb in theater. If you think you're doing too much, you're probably not doing enough. And so I would rather give them more than give them less. I want to give them more so they can say, we're going to pull back here. But now that I know that you can do these 3 or 4 things, I think that's better. I think everybody's sort of saying that because everybody in this room is very multi-talented. I just think the more you can show them, the better.
Julia?
Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, guys, like we were pushed right into news. I like to call ourselves the Swiss Army knives just because we can do everything literally. I might not be able to do weather, but I could try, but you really just have to like go out there, and honestly, sports people can do news. They can do news and make it look natural, just because as long as you know what you're talking about, you can talk about anything. And there's so many news openings in at stations, and then so few sports openings. So if you have to go news first, that's okay, and then tag along for a sports, shoot or go to a game. Just like be willing to just do whatever it takes to get your foot in the door and get at a station. But yeah, there's so many more news openings and sports openings. But if you can get that, just go for it.
You bring that up, and it's true, because I've heard that, and Faith has taught me that, and it's kind of made me question, like, should I start off in news and then try to work my way into sports? What's your guys' opinion on that? Chris, Jonathan, Christopher?
Yes. I wanted to be in sports media, and my first job, as I mentioned, was on a news talk show. And Julia is right. If you know what you're talking about, if you've researched what you're doing, if you've prepped, and you know how to, to deliver content and be a storyteller. I know storyteller is an overused term, but if you have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an end, that's really the key. I am so thankful that I started in news talk, because I think about when I was anchoring my show when I was hosting my show in Fargo, I was on the air for Sandy Hook, and having gone through something so tragic like that, and weaving in people from Newtown, Connecticut, and from New York City, and from Minneapolis, and weaving in people from Fargo at a local school, being able to do that, jumping into sports was a piece of cake. Jumping into a major sports story, nothing could touch that. So I think anytime you can get experience in news or in weather or anything, I think everything in your belt is an advantage going forward, whether you are a Chris, Jonathan, or Julia, or whether you're me in radio.
Chris, Jonathan.
What was the question again?
So should students start off in the news, or should they still try push for a sports journalist application?
That's a tough one. I once had a professor tell me, I was like, hey, there's a producer opening up. There's a position open for a producer at a Syracuse station. I was like, let me apply to that, and I can just creep my way into the sports department. And he's an old school professor, and he goes, Jonathan, that's not going to work. Producers take producer jobs, and sports anchors take sports anchor jobs. However, I think now that's changed. Once again, this goes back to what I said before. The more you can do, the more valuable you are. And so, if you love sports, and right now the only opportunity is a news job, I would totally take it. One, you're getting your foot in the door into a newsroom, which right now is not easy to do. Two, during your downtime, you can shadow the sports department. And three, within the blink of an eye, somebody may leave the sports department. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And you could be the next guy up, and they're like, hey, you've shown that, you have a lot of interest in sports. Show us what you can do on the sports side now. They might keep you on the news department also, but you're doing both. And nevertheless, in my opinion, I just think getting your foot into the door, into the newsroom, is a big check. And once you're in, I don't want to say you're in forever, but once you're in, your network grows.
Chris?
I do agree with what everyone's saying, getting your foot in the door. I also, I do want to say, you can get your job as a producer. I will say, especially when you first start out, you're probably going to be on a contract 2 years. So if you were to take a producer job, I think if you really want to report or be on air or do something like that, it would be best to take one of those routes. It's not to say that you can't be a producer and work your way up, but you get so busy in what you're doing and what you're going to be doing with your new job and challenges that you might get sidetracked from what you do want. So not every job, the first one, is the perfect one, and not any job is going to be perfect. But I think you don't have to say yes to the first thing. I know that kind of contradicts what some people have said. But you want to find something that is going to be a good fit for you. You have to imagine that you're going to live in that place probably for 2 to 3 years, especially got to find out what the contract is. Because especially in the beginning, I can speak for small market television, you're not going to make a lot. You're going to gain a lot in experience. And that's not to be a deterrent, but it's to be a reality. And you gotta imagine that you can be in that area market for a while and learn. But I do agree that getting your foot in the door is probably the hardest thing. And then once you do get in there, you can make waves and do what you want to do. But yeah, it's kind of my take on that. But you have to be willing to move anywhere. Like I've been very fortunate to be in California, being a California native, but like everyone, I've sent my tapes across wherever. And then also you're going to get a lot of no's. So being persistent, and it's about getting breaks. And like Jonathan and other people have said, you never know when someone is going to leave. So keep trying. And if you're not getting luck, having luck, reach out to people, work on your network. And I think persistence always pays off.
And if I can just follow up on that real quick, just because a job that you wanted, just because they say no, doesn't mean the world's over. That's also a good opportunity for somebody to follow up with that news director 6 months down the line, because maybe the person they hired, maybe it didn't work out. Maybe they didn't like living in the middle of Iowa by themselves. So, I mean, just because they say no doesn't mean it's over. In fact, it's a way to stay connected with somebody. You send them your tape a year later and like, hey, I'm Jonathan, and we spoke last year about that position. I know it wasn't open, but here's my tape. Here's what I've done in the last year. And now they know you, which is good. So when a position does open, it may not be that station. It may be a position within, say, Sinclair or Scripps or any other broadcast company. So now they might know you, and just staying connected, it could take you a long ways, because a lot of the bosses or management in this field, from what I've seen, they know a lot of people, and they've been doing it probably since most of us, were born.
I want to follow up with one thing that Chris said. I wrote it down so I didn't screw it up. He said you're going to get a lot of no's. That's probably the most salient point of this whole thing, is a lot of no's. And this is where I like to talk to young broadcasters and tell them about one part of my theater background. And this is the way I always started out when I do a theater seminar. In my career, I did 105 plays in Great Britain and the United States. And everybody always goes, ooh, wow. And then I tell them the ones that I didn't get were over 1,000. Over 1,000 plays that I didn't get called back for, that I didn't get cast in. You better get used to getting no's. But the key thing is, and I think everybody in this room would agree, you're looking for one yes. Yep. You're looking for one yes. So don't get hung up on the no's, because it's usually not personal. It's somebody's relative. It's somebody who's in town. I got beat out for a job at KMOX in St. Louis because the guy who used to work at ESPN St. Louis decided to walk across the street, and he was there, and they didn't have to move me. So I mean, it's usually not that, but yeah, you're looking for one, not two, one no, just one yes, not no, yes, one yes. That's key.
Well, that's great, guys. Thank you for that. I want to pivot to one of our YouTube comments we got a little while back. It's from Gabriel, and he goes, "Hi, CG, Jonathan, Chris, and Julia. For those who jumped into the field while in college, how did you find that balance between your schoolwork and building your career for the real world?" I want to go with Jonathan first, because he's the master's degree and everything.
So how did I balance my academics with the job search? Was that what it was?
Yeah, and it's building your career for the real world.
It was tough. Once again, late bloomer. I hate to say it again, but college was really, really stressful for me. I knew I had to maintain a certain GPA, and at the same time, I'm thinking about what's next. I don't want to leave school without a job. That's not what I came here for. So It was a tough balance, and I just kind of took the old school approach and said, you know what, like let's just keep pushing forward. You got to stay gritty with this. I was kind of treating my master's program like a sport. Like we got to stay aggressive. We got to stay in shape as far as getting all the work done, getting my studying done, so that when school was coming to a close, I would hopefully have a position available for myself.
Julia, what about you?
So in college, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I also want to tell you guys, like, don't be so focused on the next chapter in your life. You need to experience college and enjoy it and know that you're never going to go back to college after you're done. So like really, really enjoy it. And don't be so focused in on, oh my gosh, I have to be here at this age, or I have to be in this market at that age. Like you just experience everything that you do with just like when you're all in, like college is one of the best times of your life, and you don't want to be so focused in on what's next and be an adult and stuff. Like you have to enjoy it. I cannot like stress that enough. You have to enjoy college, high school, even, like when you look back, you're like, man, I should have like done this or that. Like you don't want to have any regrets. Jobs will be there, jobs will be there in the future. You're going to work the rest of your life. So enjoy college and make friends and have experiences that you won't have again. And yeah, I just think a lot of people are so focused on like getting that next job, they kind of forget about life as is right now.
And don't be so concerned when you're in Fargo, Billings, Bozeman, Columbia, South Carolina. Don't get there and then you're already thinking about the next job. Relish where you're at, the people you're getting to know, the contacts you're making, like Chris said a little bit earlier and Jonathan said. Really relish every step. When I got to Fargo, people were telling me, oh, you're going to be here a year. I was there 6 years. They were 6 of the greatest years of my life. Some of my closest friends were from there. And sometimes, you know what? A lot of folks get to a smaller market and they discover, much to their surprise, you know what? I like it here. I like the quality of life. I like the station. I like the people I'm working with. I like the people who run this company. Not everybody is looking to go up that ladder. Take it one day at a time. I know that sounds like an overused phrase, but really take it one day at a time and just be in that moment. In theater, we always say everything you're doing is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances in that moment. Live in TV and radio in that moment.
Yeah, I can echo those same sentiments. Working in Palm Springs in my first job, and it's fun because especially there, everyone is the same age. You all kind of have the same goals, so you kind of grow up. It's really an extension of college, at least it was for me. And then everybody kind of branches off if they want to, or if they don't. Some people stay in the business, some people don't. But while you're not making, and don't get hung up on the money too. I mean, that's one thing that can be a detraction. I've seen a lot of people who are talented and I thought would be good. They just did something else, and that's totally okay. Everybody has life decisions, or something comes up, or they get engaged. I mean, this business isn't for everyone. You're going to work holidays and weekends and odd hours, overnights. But I think if you're truly passionate about it and you want it, and you have an idea of what you want, you'll be fine. But like everyone said here, enjoy every stage that you're in, because they are a lot different. So a small market to a medium market, then it's not like college, but you still have maybe a group of friends your age, and then you can learn from. I learned, from the Warren Armstrongs and the people that I watched growing up, and then and now I'm here. It's just every stage is different. So enjoy each stage for what it's worth. And, you could be happy in whatever. You might think you're in a city that you never thought you want to be in, and you end up being there, and that's the place you find out you want to be. So enjoy the stages and learn and just kind of try and grow, but you have to be present, because especially I think in smaller markets, you really connect with the audience. I'm going off of Palm Springs. It's a very, everyone watches the news in Palm Springs. It might not be that way up here. People do watch, but I realized that it seemed like I made a really big impact in my first market, just based on, covering high school sports and other things that are not the Giants or the 49ers. And not to say that I don't love doing that, because I really do, but every market has its benefit, and they're a little bit different, but enjoy where you're at the time you're there.
If you guys mind, can I piggyback off that real quick? The small market grind is grueling, but it's awesome. just because the fact that you're shooting, you're editing, you're doing everything by yourself. And small markets, in my opinion, the on-air talent sticks out a bit more just because there are how do I say this? There's not as many people. Like, you're in the Bay Area, there's millions of people. I'm in Bakersfield, so when I go to the supermarket, it's a sports guy, shopping for cookies again or something like that. So it gives you an opportunity to really connect with people outside of the newsroom. I don't know if any of you guys can agree with that.
Guys, I just want to tell you, so I went from Reno to Denver, and I was so excited. Denver's, a top 15 market, and I was so excited. Like, that's where I wanted to be. And then when you get there, it all depends on the people that you work with. The reason why I'm still here in Fresno is because I work with the best sports team that I've ever worked with. They treat me fairly. They are on my team. Like, they have my back with everything. And I have never experienced that before. I've experienced some really, really low times in this industry. And I thought I was going to get out of it just because of the people that I was around. And like, they treated me like second-class citizen. And it was just, they really tried to break me. But when I got here, I was like, okay, this might be my last one. Like, let's see how it goes. But I cannot stress enough, it's about the people that you work with. And I cannot, I never take my team for granted now, just because I've been through some lowest of lows with at different stations and just being treated completely differently. But yeah, you just got to keep pushing through, and hopefully you do find that good spot. And Fresno is it for me.
That's such a great point, but that can't be overstated, because I started in a major market, as a call screener and a producer, and I was in Minneapolis, but it wasn't until getting to Fargo. I mean, suddenly I'm covering FCS national championship games with North Dakota State. I'm covering the Frozen Four with North Dakota. I was covering the Vikings and the Twins more from little WDAY in Fargo than I was from Minneapolis. And as Julia said, and as Chris said, talking about, making an impact, we made an impact. I mean, the show, we were dialed into the local rape and abuse crisis center. We were dialed into Make-A-Wish. We were dialed into Ronald McDonald House, because it was a smaller market. And the ability to remind people that, yeah, we're on the radio, but you know what? Our kids go to your kids' school. We shop at the same places. All of that matters. And you suddenly get immersed in a way that what matters most are the people you're connecting with and the people you're working with, as Julia said, and as Chris said, with the impact. And so, yeah, I mean, this is market for radio. This is market 66, and it's been great. Sometimes, and boy, I applaud Chris for when he went up to the Bay Area. I think it's great. It's very well deserving. Just like when Tommy Tran went out to CBS Sports HQ, those breaks, when they come along because you're ready. And because somebody, a higher up saw you and said, yeah, your work is good. But, sometimes people get those opportunities and they say, you know what, I kind of like it here. I think I want to stay here. And that's okay too. It's an individual thing. And that's what it boils down to. Do you like the people you go to work with every day? That's key.
Yeah, and as Christopher said, the job, it's very subjective, and it's about timing and who knows who. And so sometimes that works in your favor, and sometimes it doesn't work in your favor. And it's not a reflection of your talent or skill level or any of that. So it's not a math equation, 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, it's just so many things go into it. Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say about, I know one thing I want to say about storytelling. We haven't really touched on it, but one thing I've always taken into my stories, whether I've been in college or now, is I assume that one story I tell, they're going to have that for the rest of their life. It's very important to that person. So give your all, because it's important. We're on TV, we're in the media, and we probably will be in it for a long time, or we may not, but give effort into what you do, because that particular story is important to that family or that person. And I mean, my stories now are much better than they were in college, but I tried just as hard in college for a Fresno State softball story about these twins, and one of them I knew, they were cousins. Actually, they were cousins, I'm sorry, and I grew up with one of them. But that effort that I put in for a particular story, feature, whatever it is the same. I hope the storytelling's a little bit better because I've learned and grown, but make sure you do that, because I think that also helps you connect with your viewers. I've built relationships with people that I've done stories on, and now they're like friends, and I would have never met them had I not been in this business. So it can be really eye-opening. I've met a lot of different people outside of this business, and I had a tragic story a couple years ago in Fresno. I met a young man who passed away, unfortunately, due to cancer. I'm friends with his mom, and I'm beloved by their family. I love their family. And so those are the kind of things that can happen, and you didn't even know it was going to happen. So yeah, just take advantage of those things and treat every story with the highest regard, because it's important to those people.
I think that's a great way to kind of just build yourself, not just as a sports reporter, but as a person. It's something I've been trying to focus on while here at Fresno State, and I'm glad to hear the story. And but I do have one last question before we wrap up. I'm curious. You guys all talked about markets, and for me, thinking about like, okay, well, I'm well aware that I may have to go to these smaller towns. For me, I think is the hardest part about that is learning those newer markets, learning what's been going on over there. So for you guys, what was that like in your guys' smaller markets?
Yeah, can I jump in here? Oh, I'm sorry, Jonathan, did you want to go ahead?
No, you go first.
Oh, okay. That I was wondering if that question would come up. So when I got to Fargo, they have a thing called the Downtown Street Fair. So everybody's got little crafts booths, and we had our radio booth. And I will never forget, I can hear this woman in my head. She walked by the booth and she said, "Who the hell are you?" And I just never, because Fargo is, the station there was a heritage station. They're west of the Mississippi, but they're still a W station because they came on the air in May of 1922. Heritage station, right down the line, one of the first 35 in the country. And I was the first new person that got there in years. And they were looking at me like, I don't like you already. I don't. And the first email on my first show, 20 minutes in, and I have it framed in this office at home, all it said is, "You're not very interesting." And 3 years later, that same guy, God bless him, wrote me back, and I didn't know who it was. He was talking about how much he loved the show, and he said, "Do you remember that email you got 3 years ago? You're not very interesting." I was wrong. And the point was, he gave me a chance. And that's the point of this story, that don't expect folks in a small market who are used to their people. They're used to their Chris Alvarez, or their Julia Lopez, or their Jonathan. And I didn't say his last name because I'm sure I'm going to screw it up. But they're used to their people. And so when somebody new comes in, take your time. Don't force yourself on them. Let them get to know you and be you, and they will eventually warm up to you. Because I'm a Greek from the north side of Chicago, and I was in Scandinavian country where that whole area up there is like, yeah, I'm laughing right here. I'm laughing right here. And so it took a while. It took like 2 years to break through that. But that was my small market story.
As for me, when I got to Bakersfield, I didn't know anything about the land. I didn't know who the mayor was. I didn't know anything. I consider myself lucky. My sports director, Greg Kerr, he's been here since 1986. So Greg is covering these high school and college athletes. He's also covered their parents and their uncles. That's how long he's been here. So when I got here, I knew I had support by my sports director. Now he's old school. He's a pen and paper type of guy. I'm a keyboard guy. So we do things differently, but there's really no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you. Everyone has their own way of going about this journalism process. And so I was scared when I moved out here, 3,000 miles away from home. Never even been to California before, but I knew I was in a good environment, to piggyback what Julia said about, her being with a really good core group at her station. And I knew I had support, a young journalist at a school, absolutely awful, knew nothing at all. But it gave me some more faith and motivation within myself, knowing that my sports director has been here forever. He's covered Derek Carr and all those guys who've been playing, Joey Porter in the NFL. So a very good track record of people who he's covered. And that made me feel very confident.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, okay. I'll go. I was going to give Julia, but that's okay. When I applied and I got the job in Palm Springs, all I knew was in California and it was hot. I actually had never been there. And crazy enough, like I'm from here. It's 2 hours east of LA, by the way. If you've never been there, it's in the middle of the desert. But I didn't know a lot. And so once I finally, I went out and did an interview, and then eventually got hired. I was looking a lot online at their website. So I worked at KESQ, which is now a duopoly, triopoly, whatever. They're like everything there except for the NBC. And kind of just looking back through some of the stories and like their most recent sports stuff and trying to get as much of a feel as I could before I got there. Because I knew absolutely nothing, didn't know who came from there, didn't know the school names. I watched old high school football shows. And then I also got out there and kind of reached out to some of my new coworkers via email to say, hey, I was coming aboard. I went in the weekend before I actually started on a Monday and like shadowed the anchor. I was on my off time, but I was like, I want to hit the ground running. I want to know what we're doing, shadow you. And obviously you have a training period, but you pretty quickly get thrown into the fire, especially when you get hired. So it evolves as you go, but I think asking questions, especially I was fortunate to have a good sports director as well and a good sports department. But if I didn't, I would have asked the news anchor, the longtime news anchors that have been there 20 years, even though they can help you. So I think it's a matter of, yes, you have to have good people around you, or maybe they're not in your department. Not every department's going to be perfect. Not everyone's going to treat you the same, but there are someone always to learn from. And if you can't get it there, read the local paper. Like there's all kinds of outlets to read. And then just make sure you get the names correct. One thing I know people don't like when you come to a new town is getting a name of a town wrong. So learn that pretty quickly. It's probably the hardest in weather because you have to name off a bunch of towns. And one of my friends, Rob Bradley, who I worked with in Palm Springs, he came to Fresno and he said, Visalia, like I'm like, dude, we got to get this straightened out. And obviously I'm from Fresno, so I helped them out with that. But getting some of those towns right, as Christopher said, they'll know, but they'll respect you once you get it right and you're out in the community and you're just, mingling and greeting people. So be friendly when you're out there too. People like that, and they always appreciate when you cover things, especially in small markets. The more you're out there, the more they're going to see you and they're going to connect with you in a more personal way, probably.
Yeah, when I was in Reno, the first thing that they told me, don't say Nevada. You have to say Nevada or else like you're going to stand out and people are going to get so mad and you're going to get emails saying you get out of here. But that's like the first thing that, I learned when I was over there. And Reno's a very white town. So when they see a Lopez on there, like you got to prove yourself extra. Like you have to there's not a lot of Lopez's out in Reno. I'll just say that. Or in Greenville, South Carolina, when I was over there. And it's just like, you have to prove yourself that you belong there. You have to prove yourself that you know what you're talking about and get out into the community so people can get to know you as a person, not just as a sports anchor or reporter. I feel like, people are just wanting to understand if they can trust you, if you're credible and give, the facts. And I think once they see you out in the community and that you care about the community and the people and the stories that you tell, then they're going to respect you so much.
I got to piggyback on that. I know you guys are trying to wrap, but being out with the community it also means a lot to me. I'm no longer, John, the sports guy. I'm now John from the church, or John from Costco, or John who goes running, 3 times a week in the morning. And over time, I had to earn that. The community sees me out. I go to different supermarkets. I try to go to different events during the weekend. So we were just not a face behind a camera. And in the smaller markets, I've only worked in the smaller markets, so I can only speak for that. A lot of appreciation from the community, because at the end of the day, we're telling stories, pretty much from their own backyard.
Let me just say one quick thing to what Julia said about you don't see many Lopez's, there's 3 Lopez's on this screen. I feel like left out. I feel like it should be Christopher Lopez. I'm just going to say that.
Welcome to Fresno, CG.
What can we say? We do have one more question from YouTube, and I want to get this in because I think it's a great question. It's from Tonya. Is there any tips for students whose first language isn't English, who want to work their way into journalism in the United States and also have an interest in sports?
Okay, I have to talk about this because I'm not bilingual, and I wish that I was. Chris, are you bilingual or not?
Not as much as they should be. I know a little bit, but no, I'm not bilingual.
I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I'm so happy.
Julia, I should be as well. I'll blame my dad.
Like automatically people see the last name and they think that you know Spanish. And unfortunately, I never grew up around it. Like my grandparents got in trouble for, speaking it. Just everybody's background is different. But if you speak Spanish, you are going to kill it in the sports industry because of baseball. The Dominicans
soccer too.
Soccer too. Yeah, baseball and soccer. Oh my gosh. If you are bilingual, you are going to kill it in this industry because they're always looking for someone that can speak Spanish. So I say go after it. Maybe your English isn't 100%, but you're going to get so many different job opportunities because of that. And I respect that like crazy.
Sweet. Is there anything else you guys would like to add to that question?
I can't really speak on it because I don't speak Spanish, but I can say to Julia's point that it's another thing, so it's another multifaceted. If you can speak another language, that's more power to you for sure. So it doesn't, and the more you know, the more you can do, whether it's language, skill set, show that off for sure.
We just got a note from one of our officers. She's actually from Moscow, Russia. So.
Oh, wow.
That's even cooler. Not a lot of people, know that language. But I think even if you have a little bit of an accent, it's going to stand out, as long as you know what you're talking about. I think having an accent definitely stands out and people tune in if they like it,
I can piggyback off the question of the was that a female who speaks Spanish? Was that what it was?
No, she's actually from Moscow, Russia.
Oh, okay. Now we're okay. Just once again, the more you know, the more valuable you are. So now you're bringing two languages to the table. Your English may not be perfect, but here and there you can build it up. You can learn the basics of the language, and over time, if you study enough, you're bilingual. And now you have a bilingual reel, which is not seen too often.
That's great. So we've gone a little overtime, and I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for keeping you guys from your busy lives. But as we wrap up our event, would you guys like to say any final thoughts, any tips, any advice that we didn't get to cover in today's event?
I will say, if you have any questions, you can email me. My email is chris.l.alvarez@abc.com. I'm always willing to help people because I remember when I first started, I was just like everyone else on the other side of this screen. We all started as someone trying to make a break and get their way. And I remember one of my colleagues, who's now my friend, I was appreciative and said, hey, thanks for letting me go to this. And she said, one day, Chris, you're going to be in my shoes. Just pay it forward. So I like to pay it forward as much as possible. No one gets to where they are, whatever position it is, without help along the way. So feel free to reach out to me on that or Twitter or whatever. I check my phone a lot. So I appreciate being here, and obviously Fresno State, go Dogs. So
yeah, Chris beat me to it. I totally agree with him. One of the things that I get great joy out of, and I know everybody here feels the same way, is being able to help somebody along that's younger, and maybe we know something that they don't. And I love that. So please feel free to email me, cgp@940espnfresno.com. It's such a joy when you see a light go on with a young broadcaster, I mean, there's just nothing better.
Yeah, same here. I'm not too far out of college. So if anybody wants to shoot me an email, JONSINGH19, johnsing19@yahoo.com. I speak to a bunch of students on the East Coast, FaceTime, Zoom, text, phone call a couple of times a week. Once again, I'm not too far out of college. So 3 years ago, I was doing the same thing, reaching out to professionals in the business. At the end of the day, this is super competitive, but I don't want to say we're all one big family, but it's a one big network. And the more people you know, the better off you're going to be if you're in connection with the right people.
Yeah, and you guys can find me on Twitter. It's at Julia Lopez 3. You can always message me if that's easier for you guys. If you guys ever have any other questions, like reach out. And yeah, I'm excited for you guys. This is an exciting time for you guys just to get your foot in the door. And I guess the biggest thing that I say is you're gonna mess up, you're gonna fail, but it's okay because the next day you can, nail it. And I just feel like people are just so stuck on like trying to make it perfect or have a perfect sportscast or a newscast. But, we're human and things are going to happen. There's some things that are out of your control, and just be resilient. You're going to bounce back, and just stay positive.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank every single one of you guys for joining us on this Friday afternoon, taking time out of your guys' day. I also want to thank our officers, our members, our viewers on YouTube for just joining us for today's great discussion. And from all of us here at RTDNA, we hope you guys have a great Friday. We'll see you guys around.
Thank you, everyone. Please stick around. We do want to take a Zoom picture. But again, thank you. We really appreciate all of our YouTube viewers, just like what Mark said. And this is on YouTube and will be available for playback for any of our viewers who missed it.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So we are off YouTube Live now.